What's going on, guys? My name is Nick Nascimento. Welcome to the channel. I am so stoked to have you. Look, in this video, we are covering the 7 deadly sins of salespeople. If you're wondering who I am, I've been selling at a high level for over 12 years. I've made millions of dollars in commissions. My company right now is a sales organization out of Utah. We're on pace to do over 30 million in sales. So look, if you are in door-to-door sales specifically, this is exactly for you. If you're outside of door-to-door, some of this will still pertain, I promise. And I'm not here to just motivate you. I'm here to actually give you systems and frameworks that actually work. So in this video, we're gonna be talking about the 7 deadly sins that most salespeople make. And some of these are so bad that if you fall victim to just one of them, it will drastically hinder your success. And the worst sin, I'm saving for last. So look, the first deadly sin that salespeople make is they have a lack of confidence. This comes directly from a lack of training, okay? Now look, there's sales training and there's self-development. There's a lot of things that go into your sales performance. In this particular sin, the lack of confidence stems from a lack of training. And the fastest way to get the training is to get proximity to a mentor that has mastered your craft. You might be in a particular company where they have really good training, but that doesn't mean that there isn't somebody else out there more qualified that you could pay for mentorship. And this is not me selling you on working for me or paying me for a course. I don't sell any courses. And I'm not trying to convince you to come work for me. I'm telling you there's a principle that works here of proximity. Proximity is power. And the fastest way to get where you want to go is to find somebody who's already there. And there's 2 ways to leverage proximity. You have to, 1, either pay them for proximity through coaching programs, or 2, go work for them. So before I started making $200,000 a month in commissions, this was one of the first things that I did is I found somebody who was a master at their craft and one of the top guys in my industry, which is solar. Now this guy was making multiple 7 figures per year. He's this old man. And I'm like, this guy's doing something that I don't know. I've got to figure out how. So what did I do? I went and worked for him. I went out and did a blitz, sold in their state, had no clue what I was doing, but I was a student of his success. So in this case for me, one of the biggest takeaways I got was the importance of scarcity and urgency. So when it comes to confidence, this is one of the most compelling forms of persuasion. And so many salespeople either lack urgency or they fake it and come off really salesy. And when I studied this guy, I learned of what to do and what did work. And I also found out what doesn't work and how I could even improve that. So sometimes when you get around mentors, you can even find out how to do it better than them. So there's 2 things on this topic of confidence when it comes to creating urgency and scarcity. So to create this picture of what real urgency looks like, I want you to take a second and think of Black Friday. Think of the rave, the craze that people go through to get to the store, to wait in line. Some people are camping out for hours the night before. It's crazy just to save a little bit of money. Think if you could create that urgency and that demand with your prospects every time you talk to somebody. Now what I learned is you absolutely can. Okay, now there's 2 types of urgency that you create. One is around you, and the other is around your product in your industry, okay? Now, this is pretty easy. In our industry, I learned in solar, there's tax credits, there's things going away, interest rates going up, the utilities raising rates. Those are natural forms of urgency within my industry, that in the product that I sell. Every industry has these to some degrees. One of the beauties of selling solar is there's lots of urgency, okay? And the most important urgency is the urgency you create around you. And no matter what product anybody is selling, this can always be created. Now, this comes from other principles and other sins that I'm going to talk about later in the video, but you have to create a demand around you. You have to be so busy. This comes from working hard, talking to lots of people, and keeping your prospect pipeline stacked so you are actually in high demand. And this is a natural way to create scarcity where you can look your prospect in the eye and say, I don't have time to come back tomorrow because I'm so busy. And this natural form of scarcity actually pulls people in. But if you fake it, it pushes people away. So this is a perfect example of one thing I learned from a high-level mentor, and it brought me a whole new level of confidence in how to sell. So an action item for you here, note this down, go find a mentor, pay a coach, find somebody, and drop your ego. What I've noticed is one of the main reasons people don't go to another mentor is because of ego. And your ego is costing you. Eventually, you will find out how to have the success on your own. And that's the problem, is how much time it takes to get there. It took me 3 weeks because I went to an expert. Otherwise, it probably would have taken me 3 years had I not. So if you're like, Nick, I don't know who to go to mentor me, I'm very well connected in the sales space, multiple industries. I'm really good friends with Jeremy Miner, some of the top sales trainers in the world that have training and platforms and coaches in every single industry. This is not me selling you. I'm just genuinely offering help. If you want help, please send me a message. All right, so sin number 2 that almost every salesperson makes is having a lack of conviction. All right, so we're talking about confidence before. Confidence comes from how to sell. It's sales training related. Conviction is superior to confidence in importance, and it comes from why you sell. Okay, this is the passion, this is the heart, this is the energy. Okay, for me, I had to get sold at a high level before I was able to sell at a high level. So remember this, write this down. You sell to the degree that you are sold. So if you are one of those people that says, hey, dude, I would never buy my product, or I couldn't sell my family or friends. You are a walking, talking hypocrite. And by selling your product, you are not selling a product. You are selling your soul, and it will catch up and bite you in the ass one day, I promise. You don't believe me? Go study Jordan Belfort, The Wolf of Wall Street, okay? So let this be a call out for anyone chasing the dollar bill. This is a principle in business I've learned by getting mentored from 8 and 9 figure entrepreneurs, some billionaires, okay? That you get paid in proportion to the value you bring people, okay? Bringing people value is serving, it's impacting them. It's not about what you can make in commissions and how much you can take. If that's your mindset, you have a scarcity mindset and you'll never have great success. You have to put yourself in an abundant mindset and saying, how can I bless and help other people? Which means you have to become 1, valuable, and 2, you have to have a genuine desire to actually impact and serve them. One of the simplest ways you can implement and get a new level of conviction is, number 1, go sell yourself. Okay, and if you can't buy your product or service for some reason, go sell your friends or family. Now, some of you might actually struggle doing this. And that's the point. Because in the pursuit of trying to sell yourself or your family, you're gonna get very sold. You're gonna study, research, and try to convince yourself of why that is good. That is the exact conviction you need. And when you have that energy, people feel it. So within conviction, guys, there's 3 layers within this, okay? There's personal, people, and product. You wanna have conviction in all 3. So people conviction is just your desire to love and serve and see people better off from your product or service. Think of it this way. A lot of people get into sales because they had freedom of opportunity to make a lot of money. What it should be is you found something that can bless your life and other people's lives, and you want to share that. And you know you have the conviction if you would sell it and push it to other people, even if you didn't make commission on it. That's how you know you're convicted. Okay, so people conviction is wanting to help and serve people. Product conviction is obviously believing in the product that you are pushing and that it blesses people and makes their life better in some way or form. Personal conviction is on you, the walking, talking billboard. Are you self-developing? Are you improving? Do you believe in yourself? Are you a good human being? So check yourself every day and pour time into developing and improving yourself, your physical health, your emotional health, and your mental health. I promise you'll have a different energy and ability to influence other people. So let me give you a personal example of how I took my conviction to another level. Obviously, I got very sold on solar. I sold my family. I sold my friends, okay? And in this process, I started obsessing on the value I was bringing people. I studied Napoleon Hill, and I understand in Think and Grow Rich that I get paid in proportion to the value I bring. So the value I brought in my product through solar was saving people money over time. So I obsessed on it, took it to a new level, and started tracking every deal I sold. I would write down the customer name and how much money I was saving them if they were in that home for 30 years, okay? So instead of me focusing on making $5,000 to $10,000 every deal, I was focusing on saving my clients $50,000 to $100,000 in utility savings. Think about the energy when people tell you, oh, I'm not interested, Nick. Let me think about this. You're not coming out of this need of scarcity. You're trying to tell them to buy. You're telling them, I'm here to help you. I can serve you, impact you. And I feel bad for you if you don't do this. That energy is very compelling to people. So sin number 3 is a lack of certainty, okay? Certainty comes from who you are. Look, you could have the best sales training with tonality, with the questions you ask, and you could have the most conviction in the world, but if you lack certainty and you are a piece of crap, you're not going to be able to influence and convince other people. Listen, sales is changing people. It's convincing them to change. And there's a principle that you can only change others to the degree that you change yourself. So if you are not developing and improving yourself, pushing yourself every day, you are a walking, talking hypocrite. As a salesperson, you're equipped with information to help people make a decision. But if you are not making decisions, investing your money into yourself, working at yourself on the gym, studying new things, and trying to improve yourself, by you trying to convince other people to change their lives and their habits, you are a hypocrite. And there's this principle called moral authority. When you meet people like me in high-level achievers, you get around them, you realize they have this energy that's different, it's compelling, it's contagious, they have this it factor. It's not from what they know, it's from how they live their life. So by having these disciplines of doing hard things and pushing yourself, you gain this thing called moral authority. And that moral authority is very attractive. So not only will you have more confidence and energy about you, but you'll actually look better, you'll feel better. And the key with this, guys, is working on yourself in the morning. I learned this principle from Tony Robbins. There's working in the business, which is trading your time for money, selling, and then there's working on the business, forms of duplicating your success. And then the most important work that you'll ever do, that Jim Rohn always said, who mentored Tony Robbins, said, you work harder on yourself than you do on your job. So the work on yourself is the paramount to your success in selling. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people struggle with this mindset of scarcity. If they're struggling with money or they need to pay bills and they need to hard close people to hit their goals, you can get in this amazing state every day where you push yourself physically, you grow a little bit mentally, you learn something new, and you sit with your thoughts and your feelings. Maybe you journal, you go on a walk, you meditate, you get centered. This is how you win. So no matter what comes in your day, no matter how many people tell you no, you don't make any sales, it doesn't matter because you've already won, my friend. And if you can have that mentality, you're going to win a lot more. Okay? Remember, you attract to the degree that you have become. You don't attract to the degree that you have trained. It's not about tactics, it's about transformation. Sin number 4, guys, is a lack of commitment. Basically, it's a lack of focus. In today's world, especially for salespeople in this era that we live in with social media, video games, there's so many distractions, so many things pulling our attention. Okay, some of the greatest companies, largest companies, Meta, Facebook, they literally are monetized based on how much attention they can steal from us. So by literally having self-control on your focus, you gain massive advantages over most people. Now, a lack of focus is not just getting distracted. It's also not chasing 2 rabbits. Because if you chase 2, you already know you're not going to catch either. So how does this apply to me, Nick? Well, if you're trying to pursue 2 different sales opportunities, or you're working a side gig, you're chasing 2 opportunities. There's power when you focus. So for me, I thought I was Superman. I thought I was the exception to this rule. After I built my pest control company and sold it, I started a coaching business. And I was making $20,000 a month. I was doing pretty good. And then I started a solar company. And I was doing the coaching business while also making $20,000 a month doing solar. So collectively, $40,000 a month, not too bad, right? I thought I was hot stuff. What I learned was, as I turned off my focus from coaching, went all in on building my solar company, my income went to $200,000 a month. There's power in momentum. And when you are focused on one thing, you start benefiting from this law of momentum. And it's a snowball, and it's hard to stop once it starts rolling. And it gets bigger and bigger. And look, the difference between, I tell people this all the time, the difference between me doing $100,000 a month and $200,000 a month was a difference in about 20% work ethic and volume. So just by staying focused and saying no to opportunities and staying in your lane, you have to delay gratification. You have to understand and pay the price. And I always say eat shit for a season to get where you want to go. A lot of people, when they struggle, they don't make sales, or they're struggling in their industry, whether there's a change in their industry, they start looking for the easy road. Okay, this is the grass is greener mentality. It's a plague, it's a poison. And with social media and so many people flexing their perfect lifestyle, okay, it's a distraction. When I started having massive success, I stopped the coaching and I went all in. And I remember something I learned from Warren Buffett when I was 21. Some young kid asked him, Warren, what's the #1 tip you have for success? And Warren Buffett said, the ability to say no. And at the time, I'm like, what the hell did that even mean? Fast forward now, a decade later, when I'm 31 years old, I know exactly what Warren Buffett was talking about. People say yes to too many things. And look, success it's never this line of growth. okay? Success is this ugly curve of ups and downs, okay? But if you zoom out on what success looks like over time, it looks like this. Now, what most people do is they hit eject right here. They switch companies, they switch opportunities, they switch markets because of greed. They want to fast track success. So half of the secret to commitment and focus is getting bought in on one opportunity and staying focused and saying no. And by your ability to say no to other opportunities will give you disproportionate edge over other salespeople. And you'll start leveraging this law of momentum. So when I was selling solar, I had guys reach out and say, hey, Nick, we want you to become president of sales. Hey, Nick, I want to come sell for you. I said no, because I knew if I paid my price and got disproportionate results personally and professionally, transforming my physique, my health, my relationships, and then my financial health through my massive sales volume, that I would attract a lot more success. And you don't want to harvest before it's ripe. Some people plant their seeds and they see it grow and they're like, oh, we're so excited. They start trying to harvest early, but just let it grow. Let it get to its full size and then harvest when it's ripe. Delay gratification is a principle I've learned from high-level people like billionaires that a lot of people don't understand. And I even suffered this when I was 22 years old. I bought a brand new supercar, an Audi R8 V10, and I thought it was hot stuff, right? But that's a principle of not delaying gratification. I should have put my money into real estate, into self-development. So you're thinking, how does this pertain to commitment and focus? You have to have a bigger goal of something that you want. And I know you don't want to knock doors. I know you don't want to make cold calls. I know your job is probably not your forever gig, okay? But there's something out there that you really want and somewhere you want to be, some lifestyle you want to have. Successful people are very different in the sense they can look at that big grandiose thing that they want, that big, hairy, audacious goal, as Jim Collins would refer, and backtrack it to small micro activities of the shit job they're doing currently and how that sales job is going to get them there. Unsuccessful people can't make the correlation. And so they quit. They look for the next thing, trying to get there and shortcut the road. So stay focused, stay in your lane. You'll start benefiting from that disproportionate success. So the last thing I want to say with this focus and this momentum, one exact example was the fact that my calendar got a lot more stacked by me working more. And when I say work more, I went from 20 hours to 50 hours, right? Nothing crazy. But that law of scarcity and urgency is real. And when I went from having 4 appointments on my calendar to 8, I literally didn't have time for people. Think of the power that gives you in persuasion. Say, hey, I might be able to squeeze in. Oh, great sales gimmick, Nick. No, look, it's no sales gimmick. This is real. I'm in demand, right? And I wouldn't necessarily say that, but I would say, no, I'm serious. I don't have time. I might be able to squeeze in here or here. And I learned a new phenomenon, okay? Where don't let your prospect tell you when to meet. You tell them. Don't let the tail wag the dog. So I learned this new concept of, as I had my prospect adapt to my schedule, their interest went up. Most salespeople are sales sluts. Prospect says, I can meet tomorrow. And they say, we'll do 6 o'clock. And the sales reps, sure, 6 o'clock, I'll be there, okay? I tell my prospects, I can't do 6. I might be able to do 3 to 5 an arrival window. I'll show up sometime in that window. And if that doesn't work, that's okay. I'm totally good. Oh, yeah, no, Nick, we'll make that work. We'll be ready for you, okay? Okay, again, I might show up at 4:30. Is that okay? Cool. I don't want you hating on me. I've got a lot of people I'm helping, a lot of people that need this, okay? It flips the table on them, okay? From being a desperate little B word to you being in control and helping them get what they want. So sin number 5 is a lack of consistency. Look, I have studied so many salespeople, terrible and exceptional. And there's a very strong correlating theme. I've never, ever met a hyper-performing salesperson that had a lack of consistency, okay? And this sin plagues so many. I'd say probably 90% of salespeople to some degree suffer from this sin. Now look, commitment, imagine you have some big goal to make a lot of money, buy your dream home, have the lifestyle, whatever the hell you want, right? Imagine that goal being some building you're trying to erect, okay? The bigger the building, the bigger the foundation. The foundation is the commitment, okay, and the focus. And the consistency is the framing in which you build that structure, that goal. So without commitment and consistency, there's no great feat that will be had. Nobody was ever great that wasn't first consistent. So the problem with salespeople, to summarize, is they focus on the sale. You might be like, well, Nick, no, duh, dude. Like, of course I'm going to focus on the sale. But what you don't understand is that's the prize. You need to focus on the process of how to get there. Remember what I said about how a lot of people can't backtrack a big goal and how to get from where they are currently to that goal? The goal on a micro level is a sale. but there's micro actions to get there of outbound follow-ups and different actions, okay? These actions you can measure, and what gets measured gets improved. Quote Tony Robbins. So these are called KPIs, okay? It's a fancy acronym for key performance indicators. Basically, you're tracking some form of metric of how many people you talked to, how many calls you made, okay? And more importantly than calls and doors knocked are mostly people, qualified prospects that you pitched, okay? You should track with that basically how many no's you're getting, how many yeses you're getting, how many appointments you set, how many appointments you closed, how many referrals you get. So look, numbers tell all. And when I had my blowout month, I was hyper vigilant on tracking my KPIs, my numbers, because the numbers tell a story of what you need to improve and how to get where you want to go, okay? So for example, my industry, I knew if I talked to 20 people, I would set 4 appointments. Of 4 appointments, 2 would sit. Of the 2 sits, it was a guarantee almost that 1 would close. So if I talked to 20 people, that means I'd have to go knock 60 doors. It guarantees I'm making $5,000 to $10,000. So if you do the math, I could be like, for every time I knock a door, I make a certain amount of money. That's how you need to program your mind to think, okay? It's on the process, not on the prize. When you become outcome focused, you can't control and manipulate people. If you do, you're gonna be a loser, and you're not gonna make a lot of money either, and you're gonna hate yourself, okay? Because sales always do this. But when you focus on the process, these KPIs, you can't miss, because there are certain things that are 100% in your control. And no matter how good your sales training is, no matter how persuasive or confident you think you are, I'm sorry, my friend, you can't sell every person. And if you think you can, you're a manipulator. So you have to track what is in your control and put all your time and energy into that so that you don't go through these mental mood swings of cancels and not closing a deal. I could close 0 deals, but I could follow and hit my metrics, and I was laser focused. I knew I was going to win. I had days where I made $30,000 a day, closed 3 deals. And I was actually thinking, oh crap, I didn't set enough appointments. I didn't hit my KPIs. I was completely divorced from the prize, and I was married to the process. So many of you guys fall short and commit this sin where you are married to the sin. You get excited, you celebrate, okay? Great salespeople get a sale. They're thinking, crap, I need to catch up on my inputs. They're just, all they focus on is inputs, input, and the output they pour in, they make tons of money. Now, this doesn't mean you don't track your outputs. Okay, look, sold is an output goal. The main input goal my team tracks are the pitches and no's. So how many people tell us no is actually the main thing we're chasing. We're literally chasing no. And the more we get no, the more yeses we get. It's just a math equation, okay? Some of us call this the numbers game. But you need to understand your metrics and not just know the data, but work to know the data so that you can improve. Okay. And I made this KPI success matrix for myself where I knew if I hit a certain number of outbounds per day, door knocking, and talked to a certain amount of people and sat in a certain amount of appointments, that I would guarantee a certain amount of sales per day, per week, per month. Okay. And this includes the days where I closed 0. I have full confidence. Today was a successful day. That's where I was different with most people that fail find their success only from the output, only from the prize. I never found my success from the prize, but from the process. And if you want to go deeper on this, you shouldn't find true value or your worth based on either of these. It's on who you're becoming and the impact you have, okay? But when it comes to metrics and systems and confidence in maintaining this just streamlined success where you don't fall victim to these valleys, this is how you do it. This is how you don't have a bad day, okay? Great salespeople don't have bad days. They have bad moments, bad minutes, bad hours at most. Now, me being hyper obsessive, I track the pitches, the no's, in other words, the sets that we had, the appointment set, how many of those actually ran the appointment, how many sat, obviously how many sold, and then I tracked reschedules. Now, those 4, almost everybody tracks and should track. If you don't track it, you're welcome. It's gonna take your sales career to a new level, okay? And remember, I was doing this solo. I have nobody telling me what to do, like, hey, micromanage, Nick, hit these numbers. I knew there's an equation of success. So stop thinking your boss, your manager, your leader is like, all they care about is numbers, okay? There's a reason. Success leaves clues, numbers tell the story, okay? I also tracked reschedules. If I sat an appointment and I got a second follow-up rescheduled, I tracked that. If I sat an appointment and didn't get a reschedule, I tracked it. And then on my weekly planning, I also tracked my total pipeline, so prospects that are on the calendar, okay? So these are a lot of things that are not even on people's radars. Every possible outcome with a prospect, I tracked in a numerical form. And this took out the guessing game of sales and made it a guarantee game. If I do X, I will get Y. Think about the confidence that builds. So for you, a couple things that you can do. Number one, identify what these KPIs are for your industry, your business, and your team, and start measuring those. If you have to do it manually, do it. The second thing I'd suggest is use a CRM to automate this for you. So there are many CRMs that will track your calls and different things like that and output numbers for you and show you a leaderboard in a system. And if you're running a team or an organization, you want to have your team prioritize the numbers focused on inputs, not on outputs. Now, that doesn't mean you're just like throwing up mud on the wall, right? And just talking to a lot of people with terrible quality. Obviously, you're giving everyone your best. The numbers will also tell you skill and where you need to improve. So last thing I'll hit on is the numbers will tell you, for example, if I talk to 100 people and there's two outcomes. In one outcome, I set 5 people. In the other outcome, I set 10. Okay? Because I track the numbers, I now know my set rate. Here it's 10%, here it's 5%. And every industry has a certain threshold of what's really bad, what's really good. Okay? And the truth will set you free. If understanding where you're at, you now know what you can improve. And until you know where you're at, you have no idea. You're clueless. You're just, people think that movement is progress, but if you're moving in figure eights, dude, you're not going anywhere. Okay? So when you have numbers and data, you can begin the game of progress. Sin number 6, guys, is a lack of preparation and organization. Now, a lot of people know that follow-up is a key part of success. A lot of people know that managing your leads and reaching out to them is part of the success in selling. But without a lack of preparation in multiple areas, you can't have that success and you can't sustain it, especially once you start doing a high volume of people, okay? So unless I had that massive preparation and massive systems of organization, there's no way I could have made $200,000 per month. So step 1 for me was preparing to sell at a high level, arming myself with information, with slicks, with training, with understanding about my industry. I had research printed out. I had testimonials printed out. I had articles and reviews, everything ready to show my prospects, all the tabs open on my iPad and computer. I had spreadsheets built out to simplify teaching my prospects about the value of my product. Now there's preparation in other ways I had when I was out in area, I prepared myself with food. I had meal prep in the car. I had tons of water. I had energy drinks. I had beef jerky, quick snacks, and protein bars to eat in between appointments. And part of the preparation also is how you set up your life with people around you. Okay, so not only eliminating distractions, but setting proper expectations with friends and family that when I'm at work, I'm at work. When I'm at home, I'm at home. I'm not at work. Okay, when you're at the gym, be at the gym. Part of success is being present. And this is part of preparation is you can set boundaries and expectations with people that, hey, when I'm here, especially with your spouse or good friends that distract you all the time, set expectations that when I'm here, I'm all in. The other part of this with organization is you need to track all your leads somewhere on a CRM. If you're not using CRM, use your Apple Notes, your Samsung Notes, use a Google Doc, something to organize your prospects. You're going to use this on a daily level and especially on a weekly level. And as you collect all these prospects in this pipeline, some are going to fall off and some you forget about if you don't track this. And on my weekly planning is when I would go back and look at what fell through the cracks, who didn't respond to my text, who didn't get back to me and get back on my calendar. And because of this simple habit, my weekly planning, I'd spend 10 minutes looking at this list. I would write those down and reach out to them on Monday, and I'd usually get 4 to 5 people back on the calendar, ultimately making another $10,000 per week. Just from simple organization. Finally, the most deadly sin that I see almost every salesperson making outside of lack of consistency, okay, is a lack of prioritization. Now look, our greatest resource as humans, it's not money, it's time. And as I've gotten around more successful people, I understand how obsessive they are with their time. Now look, as a great salesperson, you also have to be obsessive about how you spend your time. There's 2 types of time management. There's time in front of prospects, and then there's time doing anything else. There's major time and there's minor time. Don't be the guy or gal that majors in minor things, following up with prospects, reaching out to prospects, making lists on prospects. Major time is time spent in front of your prospect. The more time you spend in front of qualified prospects, the more money you will make, the more sales you'll make. So be a steward of your time. Look, part of the problem with salespeople is they don't have structure. They just make their sales calls, they work when they want to do it, right? There's this allure to being in sales and being as an entrepreneur of freedom. And it's there, but this is also the crux for so many people because they lack not just discipline, but they lack structure. And when you learn to work not like a 9 to 5, but an actual schedule, imagine that you come into a sales opportunity that is not commission-based, but purely salary. And imagine they are assigning you as a chief sales officer or executive, just whatever, okay, account executive, right? I love when they call salespeople that. And your salary is $500,000, right? And they say, hey, Nick, you're going to show up at 9 a.m. and you're going to leave at 6 p.m. You're not going to show up, at 10 o'clock, 10:30, rolling in. You're going to be there at 8:50 every single day. Sir, yes, sir, you show up. Step 1 to success is you show up and you follow through. Be the person that doesn't miss, okay? Don't wait for someone to micromanage you. Create this management system where you manage yourself. Don't chase the prize, okay? Chase the process, but put the process into time chunks. So on my calendar, when I was making $200,000 a month, I would block off my calendar. Up until 11 o'clock, I was working on myself. From 11 to 12, I was working on the business. I was sharpening my skill, learning, studying. And then I eventually started using that time to duplicate my success and build this team, which now we're on pace to do over 30 million in sales. And then I was working in the business. So Tony Robbins talks about, there's working on yourself, there's working on the business, and then there's working in the business, okay? Now, in the business time, for me, it was about 12 to 8 p.m. Now, in that time segment, I would block off from 12 to 2. I'm going to talk to this many decision makers, an input-based goal blocked off in a 2-hour chunk. So I had a specific goal to go execute on those 2 hours. Where most people are kind of just drifting, wandering, going throughout their day, and then they look at the end of the day and like, oh, shoot, I'm only at this, I set a goal to talk to 30 qualified decision makers, I'm only at 16. Oh, well, no sets, no deals. That's okay, right? This is how I made it not an option. It was like a guarantee. In this 2-hour chunk, I'm going to talk to this many people. From 2 to 4, I'm going to talk to this many people, get this many sits. And then at this chunk, I'm going to talk to this many people. So I'm using time blocking to work on myself, work on the business. And then in the business, I'm hitting specific KPIs. Okay. I'm talking to a certain amount of decision makers, and that's the main focus. But I also knew if I followed that, I would get a certain amount of sets. Okay. And so someone who doesn't know this whole system I'm following from the outside, they're like, whoa, dude, he's just a really good salesperson. My gosh, he's got the gift of gab. He's a phenom. Little do they know, look how obsessive it is. Now, I know this might be like, bro, this is way too nuts. This is way too much. Listen, breathe. This is actually easy. This is not about telling you have to live a certain regimented way. Okay. Discipline is what I'm talking about. All these 7 sins are a lack of discipline. Discipline is what brings freedom and income. You don't have to do any of what I'm telling you. Do whatever the hell you want, okay? But if you live within these patterns of success and these disciplines and these habits, there's a code that will bring success if you follow. So if you follow 4 or 5 of these things really well, you're going to make really good money. If you follow a few of them, you're going to make decent money. If you follow all of them, you're going to get disproportionate success. You're going to end up being a CEO or some sales professional, some sales trainer, the next Jeremy Miner, okay? You'll be running over my YouTube channel with your own training videos. I'm going to be applauding you on, okay? So remember, if there's one thing I go back on with all these things, there's a principal theme of working on yourself. The reason I've created all this is I've studied great entrepreneurs and I've taken the habits and disciplines of these amazing people that not only have massive amounts of wealth and freedom and time, but also are great people. And I've studied those things and put them into practice. And those disciplines are what have brought me disproportionate success in selling. And like I said, it's not just how you sell. It's not just sales training and questions, guys. Sorry to break the news to you. It's a lot more. And that's the beauty. I don't think I'm the best salesperson. My numbers would say I'm one of the best in the nation. I actually don't have the gift to gab. I wasn't born this way. I talk super fast. Okay. I don't have perfect nonverbal communication. I don't have perfect tonality, but I have disciplines and systems that I follow that get me one edge ahead of everyone else. And when you stack all these chips in your favor, you look down and you're ahead of a lot of people. and they start saying that you're a phenom, that you have the gift of gab, and just let them be naive. But I'm telling you, if you get in this system and live in these patterns, it's a lot easier, and overcome one of these sins and one of these bad habits one at a time, and I promise it'll stack and they compound. Okay, and then do what I'm doing here: teach other people, share, go implement, execute one or two of these things every week, and then go teach and share other people. That's called the protege effect. When you teach other people, you'll master the skill even faster. So if you're new to the channel, guys, thank you so much. I hope this brought you value. I sincerely mean that. If this did, please like the video so we can reach more people, because I don't think a lot of this content's out there. And please subscribe to the channel. I promise more content and better content is coming.